This is the bringing in of the Olympic torch to be lit. The 36 Games was the first time we saw this, and so Hitler was really responsible for one of the most iconic images of modern-day Olympics.
What I didn't realize was that in 1936, the plans of Adolf Hitler to consolidate his dictatorship and to eliminate Jews, the plan was in its formative stages. And he was trying desperately to win worldwide appeal and European appeal for his presidency of Germany.
These are definitely the games that were made famous by track and field, by what happened on the track with Jesse Owens. Jesse Owens was a black athlete who won 4 gold medals and really kind of put a crimp in Hitler's ideology that blacks were inferior.
You look at the 36 Olympics, and even though there were many challenges, those athletes rose to the occasion.
The 1936 Olympics were held in Berlin, Germany, just a few years after Adolf Hitler came to power. The Nazis planned on using the Olympics as a stage to prove the superiority of the Aryan race, pure German in their eyes.
There was a very large debate in the United States and Europe as to whether or not Americans should participate in the Berlin Olympics, because Jews who were in the United States from Germany and who had relatives back in Germany were telling United States officials what was happening.
Discriminatory laws had been enacted that barred Jews from German political, social, economic, and cultural life.
In 1934, the American Olympic Committee, they were given a tour of Germany, and they were led to believe that things were fine, that Jewish athletes were being treated as well as any other athlete, when the reality was the opposite. We know that Hitler removed Gypsies, Roma and Sinti tribes, from the streets of Berlin and put them into camps, and removed all anti-Jewish paraphernalia, posters, etc. from Berlin so that they could kind of cleanse the city.
That wasn't the only thing the Nazis had cleansed. Beginning in 1933, they banned non-Aryans from participating in all German sports. Jewish and Gypsy boxers were purged from German sports clubs, as were world-class athletes like high jumper Gretel Bergmann, who was a Jew.
She had the highest height and should have gone to the Olympics, but she was told that she would not be going. And even though Germany had 3 spots, they only filled 2. And ironically, a Hungarian woman who was half Jewish won the gold in that particular event. There was another woman who was a fencer who won silver, and she was half Jewish, but she was a blue-eyed blonde. The belief was, well, she looked the Aryan part.
The African-American athletes said this is a chance for us to send a message to Hitler, because Hitler's philosophy of Aryan superiority affects us too, and this is a chance for us to prove his superiority theory to be nothing but junk.
Herb Douglas said this was the renaissance of the African-American athlete.
Nazi officials were cold to the 19 African-American and 7 Jewish athletes on the U.S. Olympic team. One famous and not totally accurate story is that Hitler refused to shake Jesse Owens' hand when he won his first gold medal.
Hitler did early on in the week shake the hand of other white athletes who won gold medals in other events. But when it came to the track and field athletes, where the African-American athletes were expected to dominate, he was conveniently absent from his seat. There are Hitler biographers who asked him directly about whether or not he would have shaken Jesse Owens and Ralph Metcalf's hands had he been in the stadium after they won. He said, "I would never shake the hand of a black man, and the United States should be ashamed for even allowing them to run on their team."
The Nazis put on a good show at the 36 Olympics. The pomp and pageantry was massive, but just a taste, Hitler thought, of things to come.
Adolf Hitler had Albert Speer draw up plans for a 400,000 seat stadium. He really did see the 36 Games as the starting point for what would become Nazi Olympics.
1936 was the starting point for something else, even more ominous.
During the Games of 36, the concentration camp Sachsenhausen was being built right outside of Berlin.
There were many ironic things during the Olympics. African American athletes won gold at the Berlin Games and were well received by the German people, but faced terrible prejudice at home.
Black athletes who were training at places like Ohio State and University of Southern California were only able to train there to get ready for the Olympics because those schools were not segregated. In other parts of the country, black athletes suffered segregation just like all other black people. And so the hypocrisy of Americans touting American democracy and equality in the face of such blatant racial discrimination was not lost on any of the black athletes who were preparing to go to Berlin.
John Woodruff, who was a University of Pittsburgh star, won a gold medal, came back to the University of Pittsburgh as a sophomore, was not permitted to compete with his Pitt track team at the Naval Academy in Annapolis because of the Jim Crow laws. And his comment was, "I won a gold medal and nothing has changed."
The Nazi Olympics Berlin 1936 exhibit is being co-sponsored by the Holocaust Center of the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh and the August Wilson Center for African American Culture, and is located at the August Wilson Center.
I'm very happy that we have it in the Pittsburgh community, the opportunity for understanding a little bit of what it was like and some of the history in 1936 for minorities.
The exhibit was originally co-chaired by local Holocaust survivor Les Banos and Pittsburgh Steeler great Franco Harris. Barbara and Dan Shapiro stepped in for Banos when he unexpectedly passed away.
I met Les Banos when I was a rookie. I came to Pittsburgh in 1972, and Les was a team photographer. And like so many people during his generation, so many people of his generation, they really didn't get into a lot of their past.
It wasn't until many years later that Les told Franco that he had many connections to the Nazi Olympics.
His father took him to the games. He was there. And he said that's the first time he saw a black man for the 36 Olympics.
Franco later discovered that Les helped save many lives during the Nazi era. Les was a half-Jewish Hungarian who posed as a Nazi officer while secretly spying for the Allies. And Les and his family hid Jews fleeing from the Nazis in a crawl space in their Budapest factory.
And then it makes you find out who the real heroes are, what he did and how he affected lives and affected generations. Really made a big difference.
But it is getting out.
Franco has many connections to this exhibit too, which explores the Nazi persecution of Jews and Jewish athletes, as well as the prejudice faced by African American athletes at home.
Being of African American and Italian heritage, I look at my father's side and my mother's side and their connection to World War II. I can relate to both. You're absolutely right, African American athlete, and then the hardship that World War II happened with my mother and people that were just victims of the war.
And those victims of the Nazi killing machine included many Olympic athletes. One of the most chilling parts of the exhibit is the final panel that reveals the fate of runners, boxers, fencers, and swimmers.
Here you have Olympic athletes who in 1936 were on top of the world, and within less than 10 years would no longer be with us because they didn't meet somebody's idea of the perfect human.